Welcome back to the show, and let's put the spotlight on the deal street. And it's that time of the segment when we track the deals on the ground. And Raja Lahiri, the partner at Grant Thornton, is joining us now. They've authored a report tracking the details and data on the deal scenario in the first half. Now, Raja, the numbers are dismal. On a YOY basis for the first half of this year, the deal values are down by about 78% and cross-border activity is almost nil and volumes down by 37%. It's a grim picture, but today we are in a different world, at least in this particular month. What are you seeing on the ground? Because there is hectic action when we talk about deals. We've seen many blocks, and with the good valuations in the market, a lot of companies are really coming in with the processes as well to sell out.
Yeah, delighted to speak to you, Nisha. I think, as you rightly said, it does present a grim picture in terms of the numbers. But as you see from an action on the ground perspective, I think 2-3 triggers happening. I think one is, any deal life cycle goes through this phase, right? One of the 2-3 triggers, clearly why cross-border is down, because every businesses wants to conserve cash. They want to make sure that the valuations that they pay for deals are reasonable and they're not overvalued. So very clearly cross-border has got impacted, both outbound and inbound. Second, we see the private equity part of the ecosystem and the VC part of the ecosystem. The startup funding clearly has slowed down quite significantly, and that continues. And I'll come to the private equity a little later, because we have seen actually a lot of buyout action happening. And the third is the domestic consolidation. That's a big play that is getting set out in the deal ecosystem. But having said that, what are we seeing on ground today? I think one is there is actually significant amount of deal preparation that is going on. What I mean by that, when we kind of talk to corporates, when we talk to investors, they're all very actively looking at deals in various sectors, right? So there is a sectoral theme that is playing out. Second, there are a lot of companies which are actually preparing for deal making. And I think that's a lesson learned if you look at 1.5 years back, when deals were getting struck in, let's say, a month or two. Today, the deal life cycle is longer. So hence, the companies would need to prepare more on deal making. And the third, I would say, is the IPO market, right? And I think the previous panel was talking about the IPO market. We are also seeing a lot of companies actually preparing for the IPO route. So I think on the ground, it still continues to be quite active and hectic. But deal closures, as we see that it is not getting reflected on the numbers because of the reasons that I talked about.
All right. So there's strong pipeline that is getting developed, Raja. And you spoke about the IPOs as well. And we have had 2 good listings in the recent past. What are you seeing in terms of that pipeline getting stronger and the startup space? How is that really gearing up? Do you think that the startup IPOs, some of them which have been announced, there are aspirants, are they now looking more likely with the kind of dip in the valuations that we've seen?
Yeah, I think on the startup space, I would say that there is a fair bit of work that companies and businesses are going through. I think there are fundamentally 2-3 triggers that are getting built. I think one is the entire focus on profitability and cash flows. I think that's one hugely significant for all businesses in terms of focus. Second, in terms of, is the business model robust enough? Because if you're going to be hitting the market, right, you're really coming to investors which are not looking at a 3 to 7 year cycle, but you're looking at investors who are looking at a long-term basis. So is your business model really long-term? So what I see is from the startup ecosystem, there will be fewer companies which will hit the market, but those would be companies which are more matured and have a far more fundamental robustness in their business model and profitability. I think that's on the startup ecosystem.
All right, so that's a very good takeaway, Raja. No, Raja, that's a good takeaway that startups will have to work harder for an IPO despite good markets. Now, biggest talking point is the transaction on Farm Easy, the valuation down round, wiping off a large part of their equity value, and on the other hand, survival deal stitched with a strategic investor coming in with the help of existing investors. How do you see this, and is this the trend emerging? Is this the solution to most of the unicorns which are struggling, where investors will jump in and get in a strategic, and there could be further consolidation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Nisha. That's a great observation as well. Definitely, I would go beyond just the valuation down rounds, because here we're talking about businesses, right? So businesses which really boomed in the COVID times in terms of the online models, right? The business models have significantly changed, right? The dynamics of consumer behavior. Physical is back and the online continues, of course. So the point is that if businesses who have built significantly on their online models and who are not really profitable, right, they would clearly need cash. And I think that's the reason why you will see strategic players coming and building in and taking positions in some of the unicorns. That's one. And secondly, from a valuation perspective, I think it's directly a correlation with the business, how they are doing. If the businesses are not doing well, unfortunately, there is going to be some knocks on the valuation as well.
All right. So what I'm sensing is that more omni-channel kind of an approach and consolidation that lies ahead. Raja Lahiri, always a pleasure speaking to you, completely out of time, and back to the anchors on the show.
All right, Nisha, thanks very much for that. So definitely a developing story when it comes to Farm Easy. But let's